Hey guys, it's Countess, and I'm back with another video for you all. I hope it finds you well wherever you are in the world. So with this video, I would like to address the entity that is known as the Tavistock Institute and why this corporation, basically, why it has so much power and influence over this particular story that we are privy to in the memoirs of Billy Shears. We get told quite often through this book. We get to kind of look behind the curtain a little bit. And I just found some interesting tidbits in, I'm sure a lot of you out there have heard of this author. His name is John Coleman, and he wrote his book, The Conspirators Hierarchy, and it's the Committee of 300, and how the Tavistock Institute is a byproduct of the Committee of 300. So just real quick, I want to just go over it. When you're trying to look it up online, the first thing that comes up is it's a conspiracy theory. And, this has been debunked by our fact checkers. And, just the typical don't look over here, look over there kind of BS, But I did manage to find a free download PDF and for the book off of the actual CIA website. I don't know what that means, but hey, we're going to go through it. So I thought we could go through a few excerpts in Mr. Coleman's book and kind of go through some footnotes again in the memoirs of Billy Shears that kind of tie in this entire sort of entity that the Tavistock Institute seems to be, a very, very big driving force in the push for the age of Aquarius. So let's check it out. So the Committee of 300 is said to be it's said to be another name. It's another name of an organization, a cabal, if you will, of the elite in society, the top money makers and bloodlines in society. I think if you kind of follow Fritz Springmeier's work, you would kind of understand, it's the Illuminati bloodlines and whatnot, right? So the Committee of 300 is actually the Illuminati. They're called the Hidden Hand. They're called the Olympians. And I know a lot of us, I myself included, like to just say the controllers, right? Because they are in control, and it's nuts, guys. It's really, really nuts when you start to kind of look into it and see that everything in our reality, in our cultures, is a total construct, and it makes, it can just make you go down a dark, dark path of kind of existential dread, if you think about it too much, right? So I'm going to try not to go down that rabbit hole. But so basically the Tavistock Institute came out of the Committee of 300, and its purpose is for social engineering purposes. Edward Bernays was a byproduct of the Tavistock, the father of modern propaganda, him and Joseph Goebbels, right? So I just found these a few excerpts in Mr. Coleman's book talking about the Committee of 300 and talking about Tavistock and its place in our culture and how the shift in culture happened. And I just kind of want to go over it. I'm not going to read everything in the the book. If you want to, I'm going to include the link to the book. It's a free PDF download if you want to look through it yourself. It's highly, highly interesting, definitely. So we're just going to start here with an overview and some case histories. This is in the foreword of the book. And Mr. Coleman says, certainly a fair number of us are aware that the people running our government are not the people who are really in control of political and economic matters, domestic and foreign. This has led many to seek the truth in alternative press. Those newsletter writers who, like me, have sought, but not always found, what it is that is making the United States terminally ill. Seek and ye shall find has not always been the case with this group. What we did find was that the people walk in great darkness, mostly not caring or bothering to find out where their country is headed, firm in the belief that it will always be there for them. This is the way the largest population group has been manipulated to react, and their attitude plays right into the hands of the secret government. We frequently hear about, quote, they, unquote. They, right? They live. We frequently hear about they doing this, that, or the other. They seem literally to be able to get away with murder. They increase taxes, send our sons and daughters to die in wars that do not benefit our country. They seem above our reach, out of sight, frustratingly nebulous when it comes to taking action against them. No one seems able to clearly identify who they are. It is a situation that has pertained for decades. During the course of this book, we shall identify the mysterious they, and then after that, it is up to the people to remedy their situation. Okay, so on to the next slide I have. So just like I said, you guys can read, pause the screen and read if you'd like. I'm just going to read what I have highlighted here. These men are the servants of the one world government, the new world order. Who are the conspirators who serve the mighty all-powerful Committee of 300? The better informed of our citizens are, the better informed of our citizens are aware that there is a conspiracy. That sentence does not make sense. It's the better informed of our citizens are aware that there is a conspiracy and that the conspiracy goes under various names, such as the Illuminati, Freemasonry, the Round Table, the Milner Group, and to them the CFR and the Trilaterals represent most of what they do not like in regard to domestic and foreign policy. And then goes on a bit. What makes America unique is its willingness to experience the future, be it in pop art or LSD. Today, America is the creative society. The others, consciously or unconsciously, are emulative. What he should have said was that America is proving ground for Committee of 300 policies which lead directly to a dissolution of the old world, of the old order, and an entry into one world government, the New World Order. The age of Aquarius was best described by the Tavistock Institute as the vehicle for delivering turbulence. There are 3 distinct phases in the response and reaction to stress displayed by large social groups. First, there is superficiality. The population under attack will defend itself with slogans. This does not identify the source of the crisis and therefore does nothing to address it. Hence, the crisis will persist. The second is fragmentation. This occurs as the crisis continues and the social order breaks down. Then there is the third phase, where the population group goes into, quote, self-realization, unquote, and turns away from the induced crisis. And there follows a maladaptive response accompanied with an active synoptic idealism and disassociation. Oh, goodness. It's being programmed. That's what they're talking about here. So now we're going to get into the Beatles and Tavistock here from Mr. Coleman's book. And this is what he has to say. So the Beatles did a perfect job, or perhaps it would be more correct to say that Tavistock and Stanford Research Center did a perfect job. The Beatles merely reacting like trained robots, quote, with a little help from their friends, unquote. Code words for using drugs and making it, quote, cool, unquote. The Beatles became highly visible, quote, new type, unquote, more Tavistock jargon, and as such it was not long before the group made new styles, i.e. fads in clothing, hairstyle, and language usage, which upset the older generation, as was intended. This was part of the, quote, fragmentation maladaptation, unquote, process worked out by Willis Harman and his team of social scientists and genetic engineering tinkers and put into action. Following the Beatles, who incidentally were put together by the Tavistock Institute, came other, quote, made in England, unquote, rock groups who, like the Beatles, had Theo Adorno write their cult lyrics and compose all of the, quote, music, unquote. I hate to use these beautiful words in the context of, quote, Beatlemania, unquote. It reminds me of how wrongly the word, quote, lover, unquote, is used when referring to the filthy interaction between two homosexuals writhing in Pigswell. What? To call, quote, rock music, unquote, is an insult. Likewise, the language used in, quote, rock lyrics. I do not. So, yeah, I am not for that sentence about the homosexual stuff. Sorry, but I do not agree with that at all. Anyways, to each his own, right? Tavistock and Stanford Research then embarked on the second phase of the work commissioned by the Committee of 300. This new phase turned up the heat for social change in America. As quickly as the Beatles had appeared on the American scene, so too did the, quote, Beat Generation, unquote, trigger words designed to separate and fragment society. The media now focuses its attention on, quote, the Beat Generation, unquote. Other Tavistock coined words came seemingly out of nowhere. Quote, beatniks and hippies and flower children, unquote, became part of the vocabulary of America. It became popular to, quote, drop out and wear dirty jeans, go about with long unwashed hair. The, quote, Beat Generation, unquote, cut itself off from the mainstream America. They became just as infamous as the cleaner Beatles before them. The newly created group and its, quote, lifestyle, unquote, swept millions of young Americans into the cult. American youth underwent a radical revolution without ever being aware of it, while the older generation stood by helplessly, unable to identify the source of the crisis, and thus reacting in a maladaptive manner against its manifestation, which were drugs of all types, marijuana, and later lysergic acid, LSD, so conveniently provided for them by the Swiss pharmaceutical company, following the discovery by one of its chemists, Albert Hofmann, how to make synthetic ergotamine, a powerful mind-altering drug. The Committee of 300 financed the project through one of their banks, S.C. Warburg, and the drug was carried to America by the philosopher Aldous Huxley. Fancy that. Mr. Huxley. Making a little appearance here, right? Okay. So just a few more things about this. I find this very interesting. We're finding this in, somebody else's research. Okay. The new, quote, wonder drug, unquote, was promptly distributed in sample-sized packages, handed out free of charge on college campuses across the United States, and at, quote, unquote, rock concerts, which became the leading vehicle for proliferating the use of drugs. The question that cries out for an answer is what the Drug Enforcement Agency was doing at the time. There is compelling circumstantial evidence that would appear to indicate that the DEA knew what was going on but was ordered not to take any action. So, with very substantial numbers of the new quote-unquote British rock bands arriving in the U.S., rock concerts began to become a fixture on the social calendar of American youth. In tandem with these concerts, the use of drugs among the youth rose in proportion. The devilish bedlam of discordant, heavy beat sounds numbed the minds of listeners so that they were easily persuaded to try the new drug on the basis that, quote, everybody's doing it, unquote. Peer pressure is a very strange weapon. The new culture received maximum coverage from the jackal media, which cost the conspirators not one single thin dime. We became overexposed, overstimulated, and again, may I remind you that this is Tavistock jargon, lifted from the Tavistock training manual, overwhelmed by its new development. And when we reached that point, our minds began to lapse into apathy. It was just too much to cope with. That is to say, quote, long-range penetration had taken hold of us, unquote. Ginsberg claimed to be a poet, but no greater rubbish was ever written by anyone who ever aspired to becoming a poet. Ginsberg's designed task had little to do with poetry. His main function was to push the new subculture and force acceptance of it upon the large targeted population group. Yes, using these characters to influence and brainwash the young, naive youth. Okay, so just going, let's see what else we have. So in much the same way, the Committee of 300 used the Beatles to popularize social drugs with the youth of America and the Hollywood in crowd. Ed Sullivan was sent to England to become acquainted with the first Tavistock Institute quote-unquote rock group to hit the shores of the United States. Sullivan then returned to the United States to draft the strategy for the electronic media on how to package and sell the group. Without the full cooperation of the electronic media, and Ed Sullivan in particular, the Beatles and their music would have died on the vine. Instead, our national life and the character of the United States was forever changed. Now that we know, it's all too clear how successful the Beatles' campaign to proliferate and the use of drugs became. The fact that the Beatles had their music and lyrics written for them by Theo Adorno was concealed from public view. The prime function to the Beatles was to be discovered by teenagers who were then subjugated to a non-stop barrage of quote-unquote Beatle music until they became convinced that they liked the sound and adopted it, along with all that accompanied it. The Liverpool group performed up to expectations and, with a little help from their friends, i.e. illegal substances we call drugs, created a whole new class to young Americans in the precise mold ordained by the Tavistock Institute. Yes, and that is a perfect segue into the memoirs, right? In the memoirs of Billy Shears, we get to page 123 and note the significance of that numerology. You get 1 plus 2 plus 3, and that is 6, which is a number that represents, like spiritual balance, harmony, a stability of some sort. This footnote on this page says, Ed Sullivan was flown to London for special training to create this historical event, setting a record for the largest audience for an American television program on Sunday evening, February 9th, 1964. Approximately 73 million viewers in over 23 million households, over a third of the American population, watched the Ed Sullivan Show. Featuring the Beatles, they made further appearances on the show the next 2 Sundays, with the third appearance pre-recorded, and returned 18 months later on August 14th, 1965. That show and other publicity gave their American tour an enormous boost and made sales soar. During the week of April 4th, 1964, they held 12 positions on the Beatle Hot 100 singles chart, including the top 5 Beatlemania including the top 5. Beatlemania became an unprecedented reality. The Ed Sullivan Show also helped launch the Rolling Stones in America. They appeared 6 times, including on their 4th appearance the day Paul died, the 11th of September, 1966. Well, if you guys see, the numerology there, right? 6. You're looking at 6 performances from the Rolling Stones. Anyway, I thought that was really funny how it totally tied into that footnote, what John Coleman was discussing in his book. Kind of backs up what Tom wrote. Good job, Tom. Good job. All right, guys. So I do have a few footnotes I'd like to go through tonight that talk more about the Tavistock Institute and what their sort of goal was and is with Billy and with this whole one world government. If you guys notice the language and a lot of this stuff, you'll hear, stuff being fragmented or dissolved or, just when you hear terms like fragmented or dissolved, that totally just makes me think of alchemy, when all of the little parts and the little particles make the whole when they're put together again in a new way. Anyways, all right, so let's look at page 164, the footnote there. Real quick, that numerology would be 1 plus 6 plus 4 would equal 11. 11 is the number of power. Power to the people. And it's a suitably fitting numerological sequence to this footnote. Rothschild's Committee of 300 commissioned the Tavistock Institute of Human Relations to apply mass mind control techniques for social conditioning that would break down all cultural and societal structures and rebuild them according to the New World Order agendas. The quote-unquote snitch, going by the name John Coleman, there you go, was the first to go public with the Beatles' Tavistock project. He revealed that Tavistock directed Stanford Research to undertake the work under the direction of Professor Willis Harman. This work, later known as the Aquarian Conspiracy, became the basis for creating what the world came to know as the Beatles, and then for creating many other manufactured bands that sprang from England and California. Laurel Canyon. The Beatles were a construct of the Tavistock Institute, conveniently located at 30 Tabernacle St. Shoreditch, London, 5 miles from Abbey Road Studios at 3 Abbey Road, St. John's Wood, London. Gotta notice all the 3s being used in the addresses. Okay, so where was I? Oh, yes. Working with EMI and various media powerhouses, Tavistock made the Beatles one of their culture industry's highest priorities. Tavistock, funded and directed at first by the royal family and then by the Rothschilds directly, is fully aligned with their globalist agenda and cannot be stopped by any governmental jurisdiction without Rothschild consent. Once Brian acquired contact information from George Martin and called on Tavistock to protect their project, nothing on earth could shield Samuel. And Samuel was just a journalist that they were talking about in the above story. Oh, that they were trying to quit and they were flexing their power. Suitable with the numerology, right? There you go. Okay, so let's take a look at page 212. That numerology, you get 2 plus 1 plus 2 equals 5, which 5 is a number that's all about, it can be about obstacles, it can be about adaptability, a sort of major change in one's life. I would say so. All right, let's look at this footnote. The media promoted the idea of Paul as the cute beetle. Without that manipulation, the others of the group may have each seemed cuter to more fans. However, for the globalists to use the band to change the world, they sought for a face that could symbolically feature the all-seeing eye. Paul's high eyebrow, inherited from his father, made him their best contender. A few others of that inner circle, also impressed by Paul's resemblance to William, considered the possibility and implications of Paul eventually being replaced by the magician's son, King of Cosmania. For 4 years, they pushed for that prospect, for the eye symbolism intended by all, and for added significance if they were to choose to replace Paul with William. As pushed for by a few, the elite demanded that the media not only make the Beatles the brightest stars in the heavens, but that they single out Paul for his looks, making his symbolic right eye a subconscious point of adoration when fans gazed at their idol's face. To help elevate the Beatles, the elite ordered George Martin to not only contract with the Beatles and to produce their work, but to use his own musical skills, as if performed by them, to present the Beatles' music as perfectly as possible. All other bands would be as they are. The Beatles would be perfect. Wow, guys, wow. That last little bit is a lot of information for such a tiny little snippet. But yeah, that goes back to his right eye. And Sally Witt coming up with the theory of Billy's right eye being a fake eye. And what does that relate back to? It relates back to Horace. And Horace is getting his eye plucked out by Set. It's crazy. So yeah, the right eye was a focus, again, pulling people unwittingly and subconsciously into this form of Paulism, by adoring him as the cute beetle. Again, social engineering of people. They're manipulating by putting out these ideas into people's homes via the media, the magazines, the television interviews, or whatnot. It all comes through. It's just a trip how much it affects everything, really. it is a trip. Okay, so let's go to page 214. And this page, I only have a couple more, guys. This page, the numerology 2 + 1 + 4 = 7. Sevens, guys, they represent sort of the fullness in one's life. They represent the higher self. They, in tarot, they definitely represent perfection, or, a mastery of some sort. It's a highly spiritual number, and it's all about seeking knowledge. Okay, so let's see what kind of knowledge we get dropped on in this footnote. Okay, however astonishing it may be that Paul was replaced, the bigger story is that the substitution occurred as part of a global mind-controlled operation by Tavistock, and that this project and many others succeeded and are succeeding through access to the Committee of 300's resources. Most notably, it required the cooperation of national governments and the media that are mostly controlled by the same people at the top of the pyramid. Replacing Paul McCartney when he was the most adored celebrity on the planet was only possible by the powerful central global organizations that could direct national governments to stay out of the way while the world's largest newspapers, television channels, radio stations, and the most influential players in the entertainment industry perpetuated the myth, first of all, that Paul's public persona was real, and secondly, that his part is still being played by the same man. As brazen as it was to create such a fictional superstar in the first place, and then to switch him out for another actor, it was neither the beginning nor the pinnacle, nor the end of their global mind control. By controlling public perception and opinion through the media's presentation of false flags and other fake news, and by creating or taking control of media platforms such as YouTube and Facebook that repress alternate perspectives, the Committee of 300 still controls public perception. When the Committee of 300 seeks to frighten the world into war, totalitarianism, gun control, vaccines, or any viewpoint, opposing views are blocked and labeled as subversive, unsafe misinformation that violates community standards. To fully comprehend Paul's replacement is to know that we are still being manipulated by governments and by the media, who act under the direction of globalists with their own agenda. William says, quote, "My story is only a key to open your mind to that bigger world view," unquote. If this book is ever discredited for damage control, it will be because William began to reach that goal too soon. Okay. I don't know why it wouldn't be that's an odd statement to make, Tom. I'm just going to throw it out there. If this book is ever discredited for damage control, it will be because William began to reach that goal too soon. Ooh, interesting. Very, very interesting. Okay, guys, last footnote I have about Tavistock and its plan for leading us into this crazy, crazy age of Aquarius. We're riding the waves right now as I speak. Okay, let's look at the numerology here. We have 2 plus 4 plus 5, which gives you, again, 11. 11, again, being the number of power. Awareness occurs in levels. Successful societal programmers provide material on a cognitive level to construct a framework for what is received subconsciously or unconsciously. The deeper the program is embedded, the less it can be filtered by the individual receiving it. Unconscious beliefs and behaviors prevail over what can be thought out and thereby dismissed. The way to change any unconscious belief is to bring the light of the consciousness to it. We do so by degrees, one layer at a time. Just as each rereading of this material brings more consciousness to these subjects, so too can we deprogram ourselves on any subject by bringing light to it. Increasing consciousness layer by layer, such as through meditation. To reach the deepest levels of Paulism embedded in our own psyche, it helps to know that it exists and how it got there. The example above of shouting a message but burying it under other sounds is one of many methods. And that's the Sgt. Pepper's Reprise song when he says, and Paul is dead. Oh, he's really, really dead. You know, supposed to be like, we're the band. We're the greatest band in the world. Something like that. Yes. So William effectively spread Paulism without being detected. Whether by accident or by design, the public frequently sensed William on a subconscious level while being completely oblivious to him consciously. For example, he often sang backup or played an instrument anonymously for other artists. He gave those songs the McCartney sound, energetically pointing fans to him. When listeners subconsciously hear him, he is elevated that much more. Usually, he is undefinable. For example, most people don't know it's him actually crunching celery in the Beach Boys song, Vegetables. Yeah, so that's what I have, guys. I just wanted to show you, what John Coleman wrote about the Tavistock Institute, and show you what memoirs has to say about it, and the social engineering that's going on today. It is something that just hasn't quit, and it won't quit. And the more people are aware and wake up to it, the more we can, shift our consciousness, right, to resistance and not complacency anymore. All right, guys, that's all I have for you tonight. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you learned a little something from it. That, Tavistock is a byproduct of the Committee of 300, which the Committee of 300 is ran by the elites of the world. They run the world, they run the show, and we're just along for the ride, I guess. I don't know. It can make you feel helpless sometimes, definitely, but just got to keep faith that more people will, get their eyes opened and will overcome all of this. So, anyways, guys, I hope you have a wonderful week ahead. Blessings to all of you, and I am done. I will see you in the next video. Bye, guys.